Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday on this platform, I did a video about Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka's visit to Makwiny, where they paid their last respect to one of the victims of the police brutality. In that video, I explained in details that probably that visit marked the beginning of the 2027 presidential campaigns by Azimio. And I even went further and explained that based on what I've been observing, probably Azimio are now trying to give Kalonzo Musyoka more prominence. And a gentleman by the name James Gashuki responded in that post. According to Gashuki, the only Azimio that can challenge Ruto and win is Raila. Kalonzo's bid would be a walkover, hands down. And I thought about it. Why not just do a video to explain on this channel why Kalonzo Musyoka is actually the best candidate who can easily hand Azimio victory in case Raila Odinga would agree to support him. And of course, I read several other comments. There's a gentleman who suggested that any candidate Azimio front has the potential of defeating William Samoei Arap Ruto. But most people agree that Raila Odinga is actually the only candidate who can easily defeat William Samoei Arap Ruto. So in this video, I want to explain to you guys why personally I believe that Kalonzo Musyoka can easily defeat William Samoei Arap Ruto. And then I took a journey back and figured out, how did William Ruto manage to win the presidency? What prompted Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta to agree to be defeated by Ruto? And I decided to check on the distribution, how Kenyans voted. If you look at the map of Kenya, how they voted, the map of Kenya clearly shows that majority of the country is blue. In fact, if you look at this map, the top yellow there is Marsabit County. And even in Marsabit alone, Raila Odinga got 48%. William Ruto only got 51%, which means just at 3%, or maybe not even 3%, just 2% or 1.2%, then it was going to be 50-50. 3% would have meant that Raila Odinga was then going to lead. Then that would have been blue. Then the next county, again, is Isiolo. Of course, in Isiolo, Ruto had 54, Raila Odinga had 45. So if those two had gone Azimio side, then the entire country would have been blue, save for the central part of the country, which is predominantly the Rift Valley and Mount Kenya. In fact, on the western side, the only county which went blue is Bungoma. So based on that alone, it is clear that Azimio controls majority of Kenya. But how did William Ruto win? But I don't want to get into that for now. I want us to figure out why I strongly believe Kalonzo Musyoka has that ability of becoming the next president of the Republic of Kenya if Azimio were to rally behind him. But before we go into all those details, in case you are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click that subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. And for this particular video, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you for a favor. Just give it thumbs up. And for those who can drop your comment, please do, because from those comments, it really gives me a lot of insight. For example, this particular video is informed by a comment which was made by a gentleman on this particular platform. So just drop your comment for those who can. And of course, the best way you can support the channel is also by sharing the video to your other social media platform. But again, there are those who normally send me coffee. I also appreciate that. You can do the same using the numbers you are seeing on your screen now. Ladies and gentlemen, why do I strongly believe that Kalonzo Musyoka can easily defeat William Ruto? I know most of you are saying that if Raila could not defeat Ruto, there is no way Kalonzo can defeat Ruto. But the question is, what went wrong with Raila Odinga? Was there something wrong in his campaign? Because most people have painted William Samoei Arap Ruto's campaign, 2022 campaign, as one of the most organized. That William Ruto was keen, heavily funded. But despite that, in fact, they've also portrayed Raila Odinga's campaign as one which was highly disorganized. The president was not interested, that the deep state never showed any interest, and that Raila Odinga himself was overconfident. But despite that, the difference between the two was only 200,000. And of course, that was because of the votes in Mombasa and in Kakamega, which Wafula Chebukati decided not to conduct the gubernatorial campaigns. But let us begin this video by looking at the odds. I want to look at the odds against Kalonzo Musyoka, and then I'm going to explain to you guys how Kalonzo Musyoka can easily defeat William Samoei Arap Ruto. So just pick some popcorns and get ready. What are the odds against Kalonzo Musyoka? What are people saying against Kalonzo Musyoka? One of the odds people are suggesting against Kalonzo Musyoka is that he might not have enough financial muscle to fight with William Ruto. You know, William Ruto's campaign in the last election was actually based on his ability to fund his campaign. Is Kalonzo Musyoka ready with that kind of finance? That is the first odd. If Kalonzo Musyoka can raise enough money, I can assure you that will be sorted out. I'm not sure whether the tycoons from Ukambani will not be willing to fund Kalonzo. I'm not sure whether the deep states, former deep state, or for example, the Mount Kenya Foundation, which heavily funded Raila Odinga, would not fund Kalonzo, because I'm sure they're not comfortable with William Ruto as we speak. The other order against Kalonzo Musyoka is the fact that Kalonzo Musyoka would appear as if it's a project. But a project of who? William Ruto rode on the dynasty versus hustler. So who will be Kalonzo's project? So Kalonzo, that's something. If Kalonzo can shed off that kind of tag, the better for him. Then it's also alleged that if Ruto could defeat Raila and Uhuru combined with the deep state, how can Kalonzo overcome a William Ruto with the deep state and as a president? Very difficult. So those are the odds. And then there's the other one is Raila Odinga's strongholds. How sure are you, Lee, that if Raila were to endorse Kalonzo, his stronghold would easily convert to him? That's another challenge. And most people are telling me that, Lee, you know, like for example, Luos, they like someone who is radical, someone who is viewed as a man. And that's why they've stuck with Raila Odinga. And that between Kalonzo and Ruto, if you were to leave them with the Luos would go with Ruto. So that's the other odd Kalonzo is actually facing. But the most important thing for Kalonzo is the running mate. Where will Kalonzo get his running mate, for that matter? Because this boils down to what we call tyranny of numbers. Politics is a game of numbers, whether real or perceived. So if Kalonzo Musyoka can overcome those odds, then he can now declare his presidential bid and then embark on campaigns. And for him to win the presidency, it means he must be able to do certain things. How can Kalonzo defeat Ruto? Number one, in my view, is the right choice of a running mate. Politics is a game of numbers. Someone was telling me, who was deeply insider in Azimio presidential campaigns, that Uhuru was not comfortable with Martha Karua as Raila Odinga's running mate. Because Uhuru believed that Martha Karua did not really have that ability to persuade the mountain to support her. That Raila Odinga actually made a mistake. There are those also who believe that if Raila Odinga had stuck with Kalonzo Musyoka as his running mate, probably things might have changed. Because if you look at the outcome of the last presidential election, there were a lot of votes who never turned up, especially in Ukambani. If Kalonzo was still Raila Odinga's running mate, probably Ukambani would have stuck with Kalonzo Musyoka and delivered. Remember in 2017, Makwiny, for example, delivered, I think, what percentage? Makwiny delivered almost 90% to Raila. In the last election, it never went there. And of course, even the turnout was low. Ruto really gained the ground because of the fact that Kalonzo was not Raila Odinga's running mate. But who can Kalonzo pick as his running mate and be assured? If you ask me, that running mate equation holds the key whether Kalonzo Musyoka can actually defeat Ruto. Ruto is banking on the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins, And he's also banking on penetrating Western Kenya. If Kalonzo Musyoka can get a good running mate from Western Kenya, either Paranya, he can even persuade Mudavadi, he can even persuade Weta, or he can even persuade Eugene Wamalwa to be his running mate. As long as Kalonzo can get a good running mate from Western Kenya, that will be sealed. Then it means Raila Odinga must be somewhere. So they can identify a Luo, then give Nairobi. Or something like that. But the choice of a running mate, I don't know whether that running mate coming from the mountain will change the equation. I'm not sure. But what I know is that the mountain already have a running mate. I mean, have a deputy president. So they would not be interested in another running mate who they are not assured of. So that's number one. The second thing which can make Kalonzo defeat Ruto is proper communications strategy. And that communication strategy must focus on three things. The first thing it must focus on is the issue of dynasty and hustlers. William Ruto became the president because he was able to manipulate the hustler, or he was able to come up with the hustler narrative. So far, William Ruto is no longer a hustler. The other day, he was pictured with a watch worth 50 million. He's no longer a hustler. The hustlers are actually crying in this government. So if Kalonzo Musyoka can be able to dismantle William Ruto's hustler narrative, he'll be better. The other thing he can do with a good communication strategy is to highlight Kenya Kwanza failures. The truth of the matter is that this government has really failed. And that's why they are now trying to go back to what Uhuru Kenyatta used to do before. For example, the introduction of fuel subsidy. If they were able to convince Kenyans that fuel subsidy was going into people's pocket, what stops Kalonzo Musyoka, for example, to explain to Kenyans that William Ruto is now pocketing that fuel subsidy? So he must be able to come up with a very proper and focused communication strategy. The other day, there were employment at Kiari. What percentage went to the two tribes? Those are things he can clearly make to come out. For example, in that appointment, the number of Kalenjins were 4-3, which is okay because maybe they are qualified. But the number of Luos who were appointed were less than 70. Then if you look at the number of Kenyans getting out of the universities, where do you place the Luos and the Kalenjins? Of course, the Kikuyus will always be at the top. So it means if in a competitive recruitment, the number of Kikuyus would have been high because they've invested more on education than any other part of the country. Probably Luos would have followed. Kisis are not left behind. And then Kalenjins would have been somewhere after lawyers. So someone needs to bring this out. Not to bring it out as a tribalist, but just as a Kenyan who is concerned. So Kalonzo must invest in a proper communication. It is sad seeing Kalonzo Musyoka going to his Facebook page, Twitter page, then you find 5 days, Kalonzo has done nothing. Then you see him in somewhere in Ukampani, attending a funeral. As long as he's not going to have a proper communication, then Kalonzo is going to be the least person to remove Ruto. You'd rather have Raila Odinga. Number 3, Kalonzo Musyoka must also publicly seek for Raila Odinga's endorsement. That would send the right signals. Kalonzo Musyoka can only become the president of the Republic of Kenya, and I'm repeating, if he gets Raila Odinga's endorsement. But if Kalonzo cannot get Raila Odinga's endorsement for the presidency, he should forget. There's no way he can win the presidency without the support of Raila Odinga. Uhuru Kenyatta failed to publicly endorse Raila Odinga early enough. He did it towards the end, and he did not even take time to campaign. So Kalonzo must seek for Raila Odinga's public endorsement, and then after getting that public endorsement, then he must also ask Raila Odinga to help him campaign, especially in his strongholds. I know he will have a problem in Western and a bit of Luos, but with Raila Odinga publicly endorsing him and telling his supporters what they expect. For example, in coastal region, I don't think Kalonzo will have a big problem in coastal region. If you look at even the last election, Taita Taveta, he performed well. He has he has MP here, there. Coastal region can easily tilt towards Kalonzo. Northern Kenya will tilt towards Kalonzo. Even the mountain, he can perform better than Raila. But he must, first of all, get that public endorsement. Kalonzo must do whatever it takes to convince Raila Odinga that declare me. And that declaration has to be done latest by June next year. If you want to get it, then there's going to be confusion. It would mean Raila Odinga will definitely be on the ballot. And the other thing, and this is the magic bullet for Kalonzo, is Mount Kenya. You see, if, for example, Azimio were to decide to support Kalonzo or any other candidate for that matter, not Raila Odinga, then it means the equation in the mountain is going to change. The mountain has always been rallied against Raila Odinga. Only. So it means Rigathi Gachagua would go to the mountain and then he will have nothing to tell them. Ruto will go to the mountain, he will have nothing to tell them. The mountain would have nothing against Kalonzo. And considering the fact that William Ruto's government has not really performed so well, considering the fact that the Kikuyus are now falling out of this government. For example, when William Ruto went to Sagana, there's this story that there was this discussion about one man, one vote, one shilling. You know, William Ruto dismissed that talks. That's something which is so dear to the hearts of the mountain. Then it was dismissed. It means the mountain feels that they are now out of the government. So it means Kalonzo must come up with a good strategy. How is he going to approach the mountain? What are going to be his selling points? So which means he will have to really get honest advisors, people from the mountain, people who understands the political dynamics of the mountain. If he doesn't have them, I have several of them on this platform. I can donate some 5 guys from the mountain on this platform who really understand the politics of the mountain, can sit down with him, then they can craft a strategy for the mountain. And lastly, Kalonzo must reactivate his grassroots network. What do I mean? He must embark on early campaigns. I want to give you a classical example. Yesterday, the same yesterday, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka were actually in Ukambani. And when Raila Odinga rose to speak, he stood 2 gentlemen, a gentleman and a lady, John Kiyama and another lady there, and he introduced them to the audience that those are his people. He started with John Kiyama when John Kiyama was still a student. You know, John Kiyama has, from when I was still young, I knew John Kiyama as one of Raila Odinga's points person for Ukambani. So it means in Ukambani, Raila Odinga has his grassroots network. Akona ka network kake kangine kadogo. For Kalonzo, for example, does he have a network? Yeah, that's the question. Does Kalonzo has network? For example, in my village in Nyakachi. Like, for example, the other day I lost like almost 8 family members. We lost them in an accident. We buried them. Yeah. If Kalonzo had serious network on the ground, someone from his team would have reached out to me and probably a donation, or probably would have facilitated Kalonzo Musyoka's visit, or even a statement or a speech, a kind of condolence message from Kalonzo, read by his points person. So it means Kalonzo Musyoka still has a long way. Ruto has that kind of grassroots networks. If something happens, it's possible for Ruto to get information from the ground. So for me, if Kalonzo can do all those, and then seek for Raila Odinga's early endorsement, and then they create a euphoria, because euphoria can easily be created, then they can create a euphoria. I don't think Kalonzo Musyoka can be stopped by anybody from becoming the president of the Republic of Kenya. I don't know what you think. That's my take. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day. Bye-bye.